So I'm going to be talking about a topic that I'm probably radically underqualified for. In fact, I don't know what human would be qualified to even speak on this topic. But I want to talk to you about a word that we're hearing a lot about in society, and it's called empathy. And this training is going to be on a different word called true empathy and its difference, the difference between true empathy and empathy. And again, I want to put out there that I'm probably a qualified person to talk about this, meaning that I've got a lot of work to go. I've got a lot of ways that I can improve in this area. And I'm seeing that it's something that really gets in the way of what we want. This whole entrapment around the idea of empathy and how it shows up and where it shows up in our relationship, where it shows up in others. And so to set you up in your guys' listening around this word and the context of this meeting, I'm going to have you listen for like the real life applications that are showing up for you and how they've shown up even in like the last week, because you're going to find that this sentiment, you're going to find these stories and these you're really going to see some parallels around some of the things I'm talking about in real life events happening for you, probably on a daily, if not weekly basis. So I want you to take this and then run it in through your life so that you can actually be powerful and have changes in your life. So before we get too far into this, we want to kind of get clear on like, what does it even mean to have empathy? Like, what is this word? Because without definitions, we kind of go all over the place. And so I want to get really intentional for this meeting. So empathy for this meeting today is defined as the ability to understand and share the feelings of another person, right? It's not a skill. It's just you can either understand and share the feelings of another, or you can't. Like take Elon Musk, for example. Like people who are on the spectrum actually mentally their brain is wired to not have a lot of emotions. It's not programmed to be hyper reactive around certain life events, and so therefore they don't have the level of empathy for others because they don't actually experience it themselves. Now I want you to take that, because in society today we make that wrong, don't we make, like, unless you're diagnosed with this, call it a problem that you can't have empathy, we make it wrong for people to not have it in certain circumstances. And so not having empathy is not wrong, nor should it be used as like a virtue signal or making oneself right. Like just because I can have empathy and you can't doesn't make me a better person than the person who can. It just means that I have no relation. I have not had this experience. I don't know what's going on over here. I can't relate to it. Why? Because my brain is either wired different or it just didn't happen to me that way and I didn't relate to it in the same way. Like that's it. Not right or wrong, not good or bad, not this thing that I can signal over here like, oh, look at me because I have had this same experience. I'm a better person than you and I have this empathy thing. No, it's like none of that in reality actually exists. So we are all wired differently, and some of us have very little capacity to relate to others around certain feelings or events because we just don't. It's really just that simple. And you can wish upon a star that this person got you or could understand your feeling, but the reality is if they don't, they just don't. And it's not your job to impose whatever awful thing happened to you on them so that they can all of a sudden feel that for some reason. I mean, who would wish that upon anyone, right? It just means that you just don't have it. You either do or you don't, right? And some people, by the way, some people have empathy, but how they deal with it is radically different. And we're going to go into that in just a minute. So empathy upgraded. Empathy upgraded is what I call true empathy. And we're going to define that as the ability to understand and share the feelings of another, and see them as bigger than the problem or the issue they are facing. So true empathy requires an additional step. It's the step of knowing and feeling like, oh, I can relate to that experience. You know, I got screwed too that one time. I listened to that guy and I trusted him and I got taken advantage of. And it's like, oh, I can relate to that. That also. And I have empathy for that person. If that person is in their story around that and their victimhood around that, and they're not going to do anything to take new opportunities, they're going to use that story to stay stuck and stay small, then true empathy doesn't exist until someone sees them, feels where they're at, and says, hey, wake up, buddy. Like, this isn't serving you. Like, I get it. I know how you feel. I've been there. And there's an upgrade. There's something you get to do. Okay. So true empathy sees others as powerful. It sees people as the creators of their universe, right? True empathy has been through it and has elevated above it, has conquered the unconquerable, has defeated the dragon, so to speak. True empathy does not save people from their pain. It wouldn't do that. It wouldn't go in and around them and then just leave them there with that. Now, I get that there are time frames and periods of mourning, of loss, and that time really is irrelevant. For some people, it takes more time than others to like move through the feeling of loss or the feeling of some and certain types of pains. But empathy doesn't come in and try to save them from that. Doesn't try to put back pads and barriers around it, because it knows that pain is actually a tool. True empathy understands pain is growth if action is taken. In fact, we've heard many quotes about this around how pain is the tool. Stress is the growth multiplier. And without it, there is no growth. Without it, there is no bigger you. And so to rob someone of their pain, to shortcut it, even though you get it, right? You're like, gosh, I know how that feels. I wish I had never had to feel that. But you did. And because you went through it, you are a bigger person now. And true empathy doesn't save people from that, because they know that the people that go through it will be bigger on the other end. You see that? So true empathy knows that our feelings are just part of the human experience, that like you're going to have feelings. You're going to be able to relate to some people on certain feelings and not with others. And true empathy comes from powerful individuals. It comes from people who have been through it and have gone through it and elevated their life circumstance because of it. People who just want empathy, just want you to sit with them in that stuff, and they want to stay stuck. It's the combination of a couple things. We're going to get into this, but it's a combination of empathy and being a victim and enabler, or true empathy, helping victims and stopping enabling. And so we're going to talk about the skill set around that, because if you're in business, or if you're in the game of helping people get what they want, true empathy is the only way to see people that's going to elevate your experience of helping people get what they want, so that you get what you want. True empathy is more powerful. Empathy will just keep the rotating. It will allow people's reasons and excuses to keep people where they are. And so there's no way we can have this conversation without talking about the victim in us, the victim in all of us. I'm not exempt from this. Talking about victim doesn't mean I don't see it in myself, but there is we've got to get really clear around this word victim, because victim plays a huge role in how we deal with empathy versus true empathy. So to play victim, also known as playing the victim card, or self-victimization, is the fabrication of victimhood for a variety of reasons, such as to justify the actions of others, to manipulate others. It's often a coping strategy, or victimization will be used often to attract attention to oneself, to validate your existence. Those who haven't usually had an experience or multiple experiences of crisis, of trauma. In essence, it's a method of avoiding responsibility and criticism, attracting attention and compassion, and evading feelings of genuine anger. And we could have a whole training on just anger, but anger is not wrong either. Having and feeling anger is something that's inside of all of us. But when we evade it, when we suppress it, often the tool can always, but can be victimization. It can be a way to actually avoid the feeling, the real feeling of anger that's going on. And so why do we get stuck in victimhood? I think it's valuable to like self-assess first, right? You want to, before you can fix it over there, and I don't like using the word fix, before you can assist over there, before you can elevate someone over there, you've got to know how to deal with you, right? You've got to know how to deal with the victimhood inside yourself, and we all have it. And victims get major payoffs. Otherwise, why would you keep doing it? Why would you keep victim around certain things? And be careful here, because I know that like in some of your guys' heads, you're already saying like, well, I'm not a victim, Matt. I don't do that. That's not me. That's other people. I know. Oh yeah, Matt, I'm in your camp. We're not victims. I know the people you're talking about. No, I'm saying sometimes I'm a victim. Definitely. Now, can I say like maybe less than more often, like comparatively? Yeah, maybe. Even that, maybe something I get to look at. But what I'm saying is try on that you're a victim and look for these examples that are going to be coming up to see how you do it. Like how does your victimhood start to pop up? So here are a couple examples of just easy ways you can self-identify like, oh, I'm stepping into being a victim. One is you're looking for some social acceptance or attention. So like you do the behavior of being a victim, you do the cycle, the dance of like, oh, poor me, this thing that happened to me that I couldn't have done anything about. And you keep bringing it up and regurgitating it and recycling it. And you do it often for social acceptance and attention. I remember doing it. Gosh, I was the biggest victim about this business deal years ago that I went through. I carried that around for a good year on my back. Every chance I got, anytime I met an attorney, I had to make sure like I told him my story to get my, like, I'm right, legally, like, and I held all the court cases in my mind with all my friends, with all my family. They knew how I got screwed. And generally speaking, I would say most of them, in fact, probably all of them, I don't even know if I had anyone big step in and like call me out on this. But most of the people generally agreed with me and could relate. They were empathetic towards me. They didn't have true empathy. They weren't trying to elevate my circumstance. They weren't trying to free me of this victim story that was really not powerful, really keeping me from having the thing that I actually wanted. But they could relate because, I mean, who can't relate to have gotten screwed on some level when it comes to money, or like being taken advantage of or stolen from you? It's like, yeah, we can all somewhat relate to that. So this is one of the payoffs that we get, is that social acceptance, the attention that we get from bringing that up. It's often easier. Talking about it from a place of victimhood is often easier than dealing with the reality around it, right? It was that experience I had where I was in this business, and a lot of you guys have heard this story. We had a bunch of contracts that were about to hit. There was a company acquisition that was happening, and I was one of 3 partners, and I got pushed out. And I had hours. I had half a year worth of work in this, money invested, all of the things. And wouldn't it, I mean, really, when you think about it, it's like, wouldn't it have just, I mean, isn't it just easier to do nothing? Isn't it easier rather than start my own business and compete with them, or to like do something that would have had me stay in the partnership? Wouldn't that have been a lot more work than just kicking back and being like, well, man, I just got screwed. I can't see how I screwed up at all, right? It's just so much easier to play the victim in it. Where in reality, if you guys know my story, the reality was there was a lot on my side where I was not being responsible for what happened. Was I angry? Absolutely. Absolutely. I was pissed. In fact, I was so upset. I cut one of my best friends off because of this, because this was one of the people that I was doing business with. I mean, that's how angry I was. But did I show it? No. Did I tell this person how I felt towards him? No. Instead, I got a payoff for being a victim around it and sharing my story about how I got taken advantage of. I allowed others to do the work. Part of part of my problem in being the victim in this story was they were doing more work than I was. But poor me, poor me in this other business that I was running, poor me, and like how could I have known better? How could I have done anything different? How could I have had any communications or conversations that I didn't have? All the things, but it's like I step into victimhood, or when victims go into victimhood, we really let others do the work, and we'll often use our victimhood to let them do the heavy lifting. So now it's like, oh, another opportunity shows up, another thing to invest, another way to do it. And then I share my story. And then guess who gets to pick up the burden? They do. They came to me to come get my help, to help get my assistance. And instead of assisting, I gave them my stories, all my victimhood. And let me be in that place and all the heavy lifting. I get this little payoff, like, oh, interesting. Every time I share a story, people do stuff for me. It's easier. It keeps things to stay safe. It's not, we all know this, that the lizard bird so old did not help us. And when you isn't where it's just not healthy to keep doing the same behaviors. You got disconnected there for a second. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, now we can. It cut out, and then we're not seeing your screen though.
How long ago did it cut out? Were we still on this slide?
Yeah, still on this slide. Yep.
I mean, this is part of our anatomy. Being a victim is actually part of our anatomy, meaning that it is part of who we are. Our old brain is literally wired for this. I'm going to pause just for a second, guys. And I'm going to get on a healthier connection here. So just pull off of this. All right, how's that? You guys hear me okay still?
Yeah, yep, we can hear you, and I see your screen as well.
Yeah, let me make sure it pulls up. How about now?
So I'm seeing what is opposite. I do see your mouse moving too.
Perfect. Okay, so what is opposite? So let's talk about the opposite of victimhood. So the opposite of victim is the victimizer, right? There always has to be someone on the other side of this, right? My guy that screwed me, the partnership that I got robbed out of, and things were stolen. The victimizers, the perpetrators, the aggressors, the abusers, criminals, offenders, the culprit are often used to describe the person or the people that created victim. And I would like to propose a word that started the entire dance with victims and kept it coming back over and over. So I actually believe that victimhood would cease to exist if we didn't have the other side of this. And this type of person is what we call an enabler. And there are many variations of this word. We call them heroes, superheroes. We call them I don't even know if there's a word for it, but like in your neighborhood, it's that guy that shows up and always fixes the toilets, and like you can always count on him to like save people from their problems in the neighborhood. Or it's that person in your family, often it's a father figure, or at least in my family, it was always like the father figure that would jump in and like fix the problem, save the kids from experiencing their pain. It's an enabler rather than allowing them to experience it. And this word is defined as someone who encourages or enables negative behavior in another, such as victimhood. And the crazy thing is when you are a enabler, you often don't know that you're encouraging or enabling a negative behavior. You just don't know it. You don't actually know that what you're doing comes with a much meatier cost than the small thing you're doing that you think actually feels like a win. You actually feel like you're helping, you feel like you're doing something good, when in reality you're not. So ways to stop being a victim. Let's take it here again. So how do I stop doing this? How do I stop being a victim? Well, one place to start is you just get to stop blaming others for your life's problems. Like, it's not anyone else's fault that you don't have what you want other than you. Some of the most successful people I know on this planet have had the same life experiences as people who haven't had anything in their life go their way, right? And maybe they're even in prison, right? It's like life has just gone like completely opposite. And what's the difference? The difference is they went through it versus they kept going through the cycle of repeating it. And so being compassionate to yourself often helps with this, like really having self-love on a level that like you can be with yourself and not have to look for others to validate who you are. You're not looking for others to have you be right. You're not looking for outside acceptance. You just have so much self-love and so much compassion for yourself that you aren't looking to get it from outside of you, from others. And practicing gratitude, I find, often helps with this, like finding what you're grateful for in every step of that journey, finding what you can be grateful for inside of that experience, even that you're a victim around. You'll know you've passed the test of victimhood when you can say, I am grateful for that experience. And a lot of you are so stuck, and I'm not saying it's wrong, it's just where you are, but you're so stuck in that victimhood mentality around your story that you don't know how to step out of it to a degree that you're actually grateful for it. I can tell you right now that experience that I had with that relationship, that business partnership, that went south, and I got quote unquote screwed on over $1 million. That's like one of the most grateful things that could have ever happened to me. I saw so clearly how my own human behavior was getting in the way of what I wanted. That like it actually had nothing to do with those two people. And it's like, what an amazing experience. What a life lesson that I had, that because I pushed through, I got to see life differently. I got to see my power differently. I got to see that like who I was bigger than the thing that happened. And it wasn't going to get in the way anymore either, right? You want to resist self-sabotaging mechanisms. The broken record effect, when you see that something's repeating that you've experienced before that was negative or painful and it keeps happening over and over, that's typically a sign of self-sabotage. There's something going on that you're doing to sabotage your own life because you'd rather be consistent and have it be the same than to have what you want. Perform acts of kindness. Now, kindness, again, is not enabling. Kindness is things that you would give with nothing expected in return. Kindness often doesn't look kind. Kindness often can be you stepping out of a conversation that normally you would stay in. Kindness can often be you stepping back and allowing someone to experience pain. Kindness can often be saying words that aren't seen or heard or felt as kind. But the honesty, the bringing it to reality is often the most kind thing you can give someone. Forgiveness is definitely part of this, the let go piece. And with forgiveness, by the way, I think a synonym of forgiveness is freedom. If you want freedom in your life, if you want to get out of victimhood, forgiveness is often a key element to this. Building self-confidence, this goes back to like having compassion and love for yourself. Like it's really building the vessel first. Like a lot of people struggle to give forgiveness because they don't have even the confidence in oneself that they can do this on their own. They don't have their own enough compassion and love towards themselves to even go out and forgive someone else. And so a lot of these things are tied, they're connected, but you want to start looking at like, where is this true for you? And where are you doing this the most? You want to find the source of your learned helplessness. Like where is this coming from? Where have I created this belief of like, I'm helpless. I don't know how to do it. And you'll see it in your language. It's like, oh, well, I don't know how to do that. Oh, I'm not good at this thing. And it's like, well, okay. And like, I didn't used to be good at it either until I did it for a while. And you'll hear it. You're really going to hear it inside of two words, your excuses and your reasons. Shift your mentality from that of victim to survivor. You know, often it can be an upgrade to start to change your language and your mentality to have the gratitude around the thing that happened, from going from victim to survivor. Because if you're a survivor, you're a conqueror, right? You're someone that went through it, but you survived it. You conquered it. You faced your demons around it. And that now you're a bigger person because of it. And if it were to happen again, or if like it were to come up in some way, you would know how to deal with it much more powerfully than you did in the past. You want to challenge your perceptions of reality around this. You want to challenge like these things that you really think are true. Like that person should pay. That person didn't get what they deserved, or that what happened should have happened any differently. Well, there's no way to go back in the past, guys. Like there's no way to deal with that differently. So why do we get stuck enabling? Like, why do we do this thing then? If we know that like this doesn't work, like why are we enablers? And enablers get major payoffs for the behavior. It's a dance that we do with others that keeps perpetuating it. And some of the examples is it creates neediness. Some of us that have a lack of self-confidence like to enable people because then it creates a neediness that they'll keep coming back to me. Like the reason I don't ever let you fix your own tires, the reason I don't ever teach you how to fix the toilet, the reason I don't ever teach you how to close, the reason I don't teach you skills about how to have certain conversations is because it keeps you coming back to me. And then I feel needed and wanted because I have some lack of confidence thing going on, right? I need to feel needed by the group. I need this validation from others. And so I'm not gonna teach you how to do that on your own. I'm gonna keep enabling you. It creates a false sense of purpose. People keep coming back, right? It creates social acceptance. I mean, think about it. Who's the guy in your neighborhood who's the biggest enabler? He's probably the most talked about person that everyone would agree, like, oh, isn't so-and-so just a nice guy? Oh, I just love so-and-so. And it's like, yeah, got it. That's the payoff. It's often easier, right? It's like if you have kids, or if you can remember being a kid and like having the experience of, you know, a parent in your life or a teacher, it's often easier not to teach someone, right? Like if you give a man, it's that old saying, you give a man a fish, right? You feed him for a day, you teach him how to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. Well, it takes a little bit more time, a little bit more work to teach them how to fish. But long-term, what's the cost and payoff, right? Long-term, is it actually easier? It seems easier. It's very short-minded, very short-term thinking. Like the enabler doesn't look down the road. The enabler is very like short-term thinking, not a planner, not looking at their future. It can be seen as socially as a revered identity, actually. And that's why we really hold up the enablers in our society. We like put them on pedestals in a way, because then I can be the victim. I don't have to make choices for myself. I don't have to be in charge of my own, XYZ fill in the blank. So how do you stop this craziness? I mean, can you see clearly that like being an enabler is just insane? It's like, I don't want to do this anymore. This is clearly not helping me get what I want. One of the ways to start, and again, I always love bringing up the controversial topics first, but one of the ways you stop being an enabler is you stop allowing people to blame you. One of the dances between an enabler and victims is enablers allow people to blame them for things. In fact, I have so many stories around this, guys, but you just can't do that. You want to be compassionate without overcrossing a boundary. You want to assist versus help, right? There's a whole training on this that I've done in the past, but assisting means that I take you step by step when you don't know how to do it. Help means I just carry you the whole way. I allow people to fail and don't take it personal. You allow people to fail. Like, how many times do we like do this weird dance because we're afraid they're going to blame us for their failures? And then when they do, we jump in and try to save them. Discover what hole you're feeling that enables others. For men, it's probably something about being worthy. For women, it's often something about being good enough. Keep challenging what you think is true to alter reality around the dance of victim and enabler. Like, keep challenging this, like, okay, like, is this really the truth? Is this really what's going to get me what I want down the road? So how does this show up? Well, in our relationships with others, we are not an exception to this dance. It's often everywhere, and it's always in relationship. Victim enablers show up in homes, in our work, our most valuable relationships. People generally carry the behavior of being a victim or enabler everywhere they go. It's not like we just stop doing this thing. It always takes two for a victim or enabler to exist. And understanding the cost is the first step to ending this dance. So I want to talk about some of the costs. Cost of being a victim for yourself or others. Blames things outside themselves for why they have the thing they want. It's like they blame the thing outside themselves for why they don't have that thing. It's like something outside of me is the reason. Again, back to those two words, reasons and excuses. They create excuses around people's success and failure. They often blame easy targets like leaders, organizations, people of authority for their problems. They create anything and everything to prove they are right and miss actually getting what they want or preventing it again in the future. They have no power around changing the thing they are a victim to, and they often attract the same thing. And that's the scary thing, guys. That is a major cost, is that because you don't go through it, you actually attract it more often. You actually, being a victim to it, you put this big sign on you that says, hey, victimizers, hey, enablers, hey, people that go out and take advantage of people, look at me. I'm someone that's really easy to do to. The cost is your future, guys. The cost is like the thing you've always wanted. So here's some signs, common signs that you are doing this, is that you or others are being victims. Is one, use excuses and reasons. Two, justifications. Three, you feel powerless. There's no power in what you're doing. Four, the ability to see a way out. You often can't see it. Like, you have no vision. The tunnel vision is so thick that you think this is the only reality. This is all that happened, and there's not a powerful way of doing this. You take no action. You actually take no steps or no action. No solutions will be present, and you will do no problem solving. So these are the signs of either someone outside of yourself being a victim or you being a victim. Now, how many of you guys have clients, you're trying to sell a product, or you're trying to help someone else get something they want, it costs money, and like, this is the thing, like, this is what's going on for them. And you let them get away with it. You enable them. You don't see them as someone who's bigger. So like, what can you really do? If there's a victim, there's always an enabler, and we can be responsible for either side of this, right? So being an enabler is, it's not any more right or wrong than being a victim. It's not like you're the bad guy because you're the enabler. You're not the bad guy because you're the victim. It's just part of the dance. And it's not a one-person dance. It takes two to tango. So enablers have a huge cost also. And I think we get to just bring this up really quick. And I know I'm running out of time. I've got 2 more slides going. So you get stuck in whatever the thing is you're trying to win or to grow. This increases the time it will take to get where you want to go. So enablers, it's like you help them, but it's going to take more time to get there because now you're doing all the work. You're not teaching other people how to push through this. You're not actually assisting them. This will keep the same problems and challenges you're facing from resolving. Life feels like a broken record, and those you see as victims will always be seen this way to you. The problem with the victim enabler, guys, if you can leave with one thing, the biggest problem to the victim enabler pattern is that you actually see them as a victim. You actually see them that way. You see them as small. You see them as someone that can't solve their own problems. And that's the biggest problem in this entire thing. That's the racket. The cure to this dance is you would no longer see victim or enabler because in reality, it doesn't exist. In reality, humans are powerful beings, guys. So back to this empathy conversation. Empathy is often the request for those in victimhood. And I would say the only true empathy makes a difference. So empathy is this request of like, hey, I need help. But only true empathy is actually going to make a difference. Empathy only sees and relates to the feeling. It says, oh yeah, I understand. And then what? That's it. That's all empathy does. It's like, oh, I've been there. Doesn't mean that you've conquered it. Doesn't mean that you've found a powerful way to deal with it. It just means like, oh yeah, I've been there. I've been screwed before. Empathy doesn't go any further than this. Empathy can provide connection. It definitely does that. But if it only goes to that degree of seeing or are relating to a feeling of another, no lift or benefit is generated long-term, right? It goes back to this short-term thinking versus long-term thinking. And so true empathy sees and understands others' feelings also. It does that also, but then there's more. And it knows oneself as a person of power from experience, right? It's like, I've been through it, I pushed through it, and I know that we can be powerful around these experiences. It knows one's victory over the state sees others also as powerful and seeks to empower others, right? This powerful individual sees this powerful individual and knows when they're using reasons and excuses, it's like, oh, you're just doing this act. Got it. True empathy knows how powerful others are and seeks to lift them out of that state. So wrapping things up, guys, the next time someone shares their reasons or excuses, the next time victimhood shows up and like, this empathy thing, like, oh, I should be more empathetic. Society's saying I should have more empathy. It's like, got it. If you can relate to it, fine. But the next time someone shows up as playing small, true empathy is what's wanted. That's the cure to this, not the enabler. Our eye for others' greatness is all that's required. And in order to see someone else's greatness, you've got to get how amazing you are. Like, you just got to get that. Like, you've got to get how powerful you are, like really. And the day that you wake up to your greatness, to how powerful you are, you'll see it in everyone else. And when they bring their reasons and excuses, you'll just shake your head and you'll go, I get that. I get that you see yourself as small, but I know you're someone who can be powerful. And here's some action. Here's some steps you can take that's going to make a difference. All right, guys, thanks so much.